Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again and we're back. Now, I say we're back because we missed last week. And for those, hopefully there's quite a few who are interested to know why we missed it. It was because myself and Simon were really tied up with the ACHL digital event, which, little pitch here, a little plug, goes out this week on the 6th and 7th. And you can find it on www.casint.com, and CAS is CAASINT.com. So sorry about that, Steve. It's not very often I would do an advert bypassing you, but good to have you back, mate. Really appreciate it. And I'm here in Spain, so I'm enjoying a bit of sunshine because it was getting a little bit depressing back there in the UK. So I thought I'd take a little break. So lovely to see you, mate. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Chris. Yeah, good to be here. I'm sure your Spanish wardrobe accompanied you to Spain, or maybe it was left there. I think probably it was left there waiting for you on arrival.
It was left there, mate. I've got a collection here and a collection in a few other places. Always happy to put a Larry shirt on. You know, a little bit of colour for the character. That's it. Can't beat it.
Indeed.
Anyhow, my friend, listen, lovely to have you. So now, what we're going to talk about this week. So one of the things that I think that's definitely, raised a few eyebrows, because of the amount of money that's being made on the shipping lines, but also it's such an obscene amount of money when so many things are going wrong with services. And the one thing that people have been talking to me about, and even some of my family members have been contacting me, saying, how can people be so creative with surcharges when the rates are already so high? What's going on? So somewhere pretty soon, whether it's a regulator, whether it's whoever, somebody is going to start coming back and reflecting on how people perform when things are bad, but equally when things start to recover, and whether or not they rip the pants out of it, which is what's happening at the moment. Now, I think it should be a warning shot for everybody else, and especially in air cargo, because this last quarter is going to be hugely challenging and probably disruptive as well. And from a shipping perspective, I think, if I'm right, somewhere within the next 2 or 2.5 weeks, that's the deadline for getting everything in time for Christmas, which is amazing.
Sounds very early, doesn't it? Sounds very early.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's another. I don't mean you and me getting stuff for Christmas. I'm talking about everybody stocking up.
Sure. If you're buying 10,000 Barbie dolls, you've got a better stock up now. If you're buying one, as I know you might, Chris, given the plethora of grandchildren and granddaughters that you have. Congratulations, by the way. I must say congratulations, Chris, on the arrival of your is it third grandchild, second granddaughter?
Third granddaughter.
Oh, it's a hat trick.
Yep, a hat trick.
3 out of 3.
A hat trick. And bless him, my son, he's got 3 under 3.
Well, he's obviously a very virile fella, so congrats. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Chris.
Yeah. No, but it's always good. He's gonna have three lovely little girls looking after him, so that's good. And his wife talked about e-commerce and business. His wife, while she was in the last trimester, she started her own company called Daisy Bloom. Young little infant wardrobes, infant retail, infant clothing. She's doing fantastically well. So brilliant.
Amazing. The things that pregnant women can do when they put their mind to it, and when they're sort of, you'd think they would be. I mean, I imagine if I were that pregnant, I'd be lying on the sofa with my feet up, watching the Royal Family, or not the Royal ROYAL, but ROYLE family, or Only Fools and Horses reruns. But good on her. Very, very, very smart, capable woman, clearly.
I'll tell you what, though, Steve. Joking aside, mate. If it was down to men to keep the population,
there'd be no children. There'd be zero.
The ladies, what they do, incredible. Absolutely
lots of practice, but then the real event would be missing in action.
Oh my God, yeah. Anyhow, moving on. So yeah, Steve, we've spoken about this, and we've spoken about at the very beginning. I remember you said, people have got to be wary, because if they don't look after the consumer and the customer, there'll come a time when there'll be a backlash. And now even, you know, the carriers now, and not because they've decided to do it themselves, but because of primarily the EU consumer protection laws, they're now being put under pressure to readdress their policies when they were under pressure, business-wise, with regards to refunds or giving vouchers and forcing vouchers on people. So now, you know, now there's a little bit of a return to what you'd expect as a customer.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, we you know, at the time, Chris, it was obviously I would say fair, and represented a dire set of circumstances 12 months ago, 18 months ago, as the industry fell on its knees. We lost all the uplift capacity, and you know, freight capacity was a scarcity. In the same way that when you're flying aircraft in a passenger cabin, you're flying 20 or 30 passengers, you know, one should be expecting to pay significantly more than the $5 Ryanair flight from Palma to Stansted that they could get the previous summer. Well, that might now well be a 250 or a 300 euro flight, and fair play to the operators. I think the problem is that as capacity has been restored and shipping lines have been restored, and you know, the Panama Canal has been reopened, and you know, all of these things that were going on, and you know, I'm sure there was some crisis in the Suez. You know, there was lots of activity and pressures affecting both passenger operators and the freight operators. But I was looking the other day, and it's not my area of specialism, but I remember, Chris, when we were doing the initial charters last year, you know, and looking for aircraft capacity and what we were paying. You know, and I see now, you know, if you look at the equivalent for a reefer or a 40-foot container, the average price for a 40-foot container these days by ship is about over 10 grand.
More?
Which is, yes.
It's up 15, 16, 17, and even 18.
Well, okay, there's the average. I mean, I remember used to get a container on a ship for 2-3 grand. I mean, that used to be the sort of the going rate. Not that I send many 40-foot containers around the world personally, you know, of all my belongings and valuables on my car, fleet of Rolls Royces and things. But no, actually, those go on the aircraft, not by sea. But look, people, the consumer will understand, and the markets will withstand that when we've got this state of flux. So as normality has been restored, I think some operators are now at risk, and this is a sort of you know, I'm being slightly cautious when I say it, but they're at risk of gouging the consumer, and at risk therefore of losing that sentiment that they had early on, and the sort of the initial response to the crisis, and that's gone. In the same way that when the Jet A1 price, you know, sits at a low ebb, or sits sort of trundling along the bottom, airlines very rarely reduce fuel surcharges. Typically, the fuel surcharge is always used as a sort of a, you know, this is to counter for fuel escalation and fuel inflation. It never seems to come out. So as fuel goes down, one would assume automatically that the fuel surcharge would reduce, you know, relative to the fuel reduction in fuel price. It does not. In fact, you know, when I look at some tickets and I look at long haul flying, you know, as well as giving more than 300 quid a pop to the British government for air passenger duty at Heathrow, I gave about 400 quid in fuel surcharge to the airline. And then the fare itself might be a measly 200 quid on top. So, you know, they expect me to believe that the 400 quid is a fuel surcharge. Actually, it can only be a surcharge, Chris, if these are for short-term events or to protect against short-term spikes in events. You can't have a fuel surcharge that remains for 5 years, because that, frankly, folks, becomes part and parcel of your bread and butter cost lines that you need to then manage. So we all accept that there's some volatility in the fuel price, but there hasn't actually been that great volatility of recent times in Jet A1. So it's time, I think, to take stock, and it's time for businesses to really start to ensure that yes, they recover their costs, and yes, they make a decent margin, but at the same time treat consumers fairly. We've already got enough pressure in the world with you know, shortages of drivers and hauliers and all this sort of other stuff going on. I mean, this is just another sort of nail in the coffin at a time when e-commerce going into the last quarter of the year, Christmas around the corner.
Yeah.
Or Diwali first, I should say. And then Christmas in December, but I'm sure there's Hanukkah and all sorts of other stuff as well. But yeah, time to take stock, I think.
Yep, no, 100%. And like the shipping line, they're getting such bad press now about some of the creative surcharges. And there's a little bit of that going on in air cargo as well. Now, again, I always feel that if you've got a surcharge and you've got a valid reason for it, your service levels need to be at least consistent, if not improving. But that's not happening either.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, and that's terrible now that it's, you know, that the service charges are, the service levels are not as good as they should be. Which, Steve, brings me to a point, which I know we speak about it quite a lot and we're both very passionate about it. But during the digital event, so many people spoke about the real challenges of today. And it's about that middle sector of employees that were lost, you know, and being lost because of either redundancy or going somewhere else, or, you know, just wanting to change their career, and a big reality. So, you know, now they're looking to see, and somebody, and I said I was going to use their statement, Janet Wallace from Air Canada, she kept talking about score on the floor. You know, I've always used feet on ground, but she said score on the floor, and that's true now. So now they're faced with the problems of not having enough people and having to pull people from different sectors in to fill gaps, and where they had problems with COVID, etc. Which one of the questions I asked many people was, do you not feel now is the time to start to reward people who've got the capability, the capacity and the competency to be multi-skilled? And let them know that they may well be working on the ramp for 6 hours. They might be then in an office for 3 hours, and they might end up in a warehouse for 3 hours, or they might have alternate shifts, or a week on one, a week on the other. But so that it allows companies to do more with less, but do it efficiently. But it allows individuals to start to increase their own self-value, self-asset value and skills, and to be rewarded for it. Not just have what people are saying is there should be a blanket increase in hourly rates because we don't have the people there. There should be a method behind the madness.
Well, it boils down to what we said before, Chris, around trying to ensure that one encourages, one gives reason to the employee to want to come to work other than just receiving a few quid in their pocket at the end of their shift. That could be training, it could be variety, it could be pushing oneself to sort of step into other areas of the business. It could be getting people out of their comfort zone, all sorts of manner of things. It could be for the perks, it could be for the staff function, whatever you want it to be. But it's got to be something more than just coming and doing a transactional shift and receiving 100 quid at the end of the day, or whatever it is that they get in their pocket. I think that is that's point number one for you. The second thing, Chris, is the where we've had this massive. Shall I put my teeth back in? Where we've had this massive amount of churn, and most of it involuntary, by the way. Involuntary churn in the business over the last 18 months. There will have to be some differentiators between employers. And so, when they're offered, most of these firms in our business, sadly, I say sadly, it provides a good career for many people, but sadly pays normally around or thereabouts for minimum wage. We have to get better at giving people kind of opportunities to do different things in different ways, and that means progressing oneself. It means offering them long-term career opportunities with progression, with visibility of what that looks like, with a program or a map or a career roadmap. I suspect that many people in our business, Chris, would not have the foggiest idea. Not because they don't have the smarts, but not have the focus, because their employers never shared with them. So if I start as a ramp agent, if I start as a cargo agent, if I start as a checker, what is the likely career path for me? What could that bring? We're very lucky in aviation that actually a lot of people like working in aviation. Whether if you're working in a convenience store, or you're working in a supermarket, or I suspect that the appetite for I really love supermarket work. I love supermarket work so much so that I'm going to move from Asda to Waitrose to Aldi to Sainsbury's to whatever else. I suspect that doesn't exist. However, I know that it exists. It might well do, people might correct me, but I know that in aviation it does exist, Chris. We get people in aviation at grassroots level at 16 years old, as I started. I suspect you are not far away from there as well, and many of our colleagues. And you've got a captive audience basically for 40 years, for the next 40 years. Yeah. So what do we do with them? How do we ensure that they remain motivated? How do we ensure that they remain engaged? And how do we ensure that we give them purpose? And the purpose has to exist both from their perspective and from the employer's perspective. If it doesn't, well, I'm going to go off to the next guy next door who pays me 5 pence an hour more than my current employer. Isn't that sad indictment of the situation?
Well, I think it's that's one of the big problems that everybody's got at the moment, Steve. And I agree with what you're saying about aviation. It's unique. But, but so many other industries as well, which is why now it's going to rely a lot more on different types of management and leaders to make people feel as if they're valued and give them a career. And one of the things we were talking about on the digital event was the amount of people I've enjoyed meeting in all of the countries I've been in and the companies that I've been associated with. Obviously, if you get a chance to play sport, you play with more people, and most of those people are, from the warehouse or on the ramp, etc. They're fantastic people. They work hard. They work in some extreme conditions sometimes, but the one common denominator is they seem to get their own self-satisfaction about what they do and how they do it, but they invariably don't feel valued. And I think people who start there and do such a good job there, they are ideal people to be given opportunities to progress. But it's important that companies now start to show people that they've got a career. Now, whether or not it stays in that company or not, but they should have a sort of a responsibility to try and keep them in that particular industry. So they go from step to step and maybe they'll come back again. But I think we have to do a lot more now than we've ever done before. So these people who are in management and leaders roles, they need to do something different and make it exciting.
I mean, that's to Janet's engaging. Point. To Janet's point, the score was it scores on the floor?
Yeah, score on the floor.
So, was that her phrase? Yeah, I think
score on the floor.
Score on the floor. I mean, look, understanding what does that mean? What I mean, so we can come up with fancy sayings, but what I guess from my perspective, that means that the employee on the shop floor has to understand the benefit of his contribution to the greater good into the business. And so understanding some metrics, and we said very early on, Chris, in the days that airlines were trying to negotiate with the unions to or businesses to exit people or to furlough people or whatever it was. Yeah. There's this sort of resistance for the business to share in a transparent manner the current performance of the organization. Or the projected forecast performance of the organization, given the current climate, etc. And I think actually with transparency, what you find is you get an awful lot more in the way of understanding from the employee. If they understand, they can then make themselves understood. And then you understand, from a collective perspective, surely the relationship is much more hand in glove than it would have been where you'd say, this is your role, this is what you do. Well, why do I do that? What is the purpose? How does that contribute to the greater good or the benefit of the organization? Actually, do I care? Maybe some people don't care. Well, if they don't care, that's fine. But maybe they shouldn't be in the bloody job then, my view about that. Because if you don't care, you should be probably working somewhere else.
I agree.
Do something you do care about. But at least give them the opportunity to understand.
Yeah, no, I agree, and you know how much I love to use that word care. But what Janet was saying made an awful lot of sense. She was saying about the amount of time of training and and people doing statistics and forecasting and everything else. But without the people on the floor understanding what they're doing, why they're doing it, like you said, and how they're doing it, you've got a limited outcome. But also to now start sharing the blended training, learning, education, development, whatever you want to call it, so that you're doing things that really make a high impact when you're being taught or when you're being shown or when something's being presented to you. And it should be in smaller, manageable bites. But then you should be able to take that and actually see how it works in reality from a practical perspective, which is going to make the difference.
For sure.
Yeah. And so it's a great opportunity to change things now. And what we're talking about, Steve, talking about having management and leaders and being, every now and again you get into a company and something different happens, or you hit it when it's going through a purple patch, or things are different. I would imagine now, and I've probably been a little bit critical in the past of such a big organisation, but Swissport, they really seem to be going through an exciting time now. So, a lot of changes in leadership, a lot of new people coming into the business now, a lot of objectives, a lot of clear messages. It must be a nice, exciting time now to be part of Swissport moving forward as they come out of this and doing things in a different way, a new Swissport formula or a new Swissport DNA.
I think so. Yeah, look, I think Swissport, since Swissport recapitalized, the timing of the recapitalization was impeccable. And a new management team under Warwick Brady. I think there is exciting times ahead. I think Swissport will need to capitalise on that, the recapitalisation. And the opportunities that affords, whether it be in terms of resolving some of the current pain points in the existing business, or indeed merger and acquisition opportunities. There's lots of opportunity opened up for Swissport now in the I'd say probably this is the most strongly liquid ground handler, strongly capitalized ground handler in the business. I suspect that is knowing Warwick as one does. I suspect it doesn't come out with doesn't come without its demands of the people, and they'll be expected to deliver. Stand up, be seen. And deliver. There was a song about that, wasn't it? Stand up, be seen, and
stand and deliver. Adamant when he did
stand
that.
And deliver. Thanks, Chris. Thanks a lot. So I think, look, exciting times ahead potentially. I think if I was sitting in an airline or speaking from an airline position, or indeed as I am an advisor to airlines, I think what airlines want to see is much more in the way of consistency. Much more in the way of simplicity, challenging some of the existing methods of working, challenging some of the current engagement standards. I think that's really important. They sort of start to shake the tree in that area. And the other thing is, I think, is becoming a partner or supplier of trust. One that, and I can see this more and more where procurement processes, as they're like this bloody, it's like pulling teeth sometimes in some airlines. Just horrendous to get anything done. The business has got an idea, but they're stuck and they're hamstrung by these procurement professionals who are there to keep us honest, apparently. Right. But I think the trick is, Chris, about making procurement easier in a way that if you have a preferred supplier, a preferred partner in a location, and you're opening service to that location, you're restarting service to that location, let's not go through the ball ache of a 12-week procurement process and RFPs and so on and so forth. Let's almost have sort of a preferred handling partners pool of businesses that you might want to latch into or tap into. And I'm not saying this is not just Swissport, because it's a Swissport, Menzies, Donata, WFS, SATS, the whole lot. But the ground handlers that have got multi-site operations would do well to encourage this kind of approach. I know that some airlines are looking at that. And the third thing is, I guess there's got to be recognition, Chris, that airlines will have to share some of the pain when it comes to, ground handling is a product, ground handling pricing rather, is a product of volume. And in some places this volume is still not coming back. We've seen some, some green shoots still. But airlines can't accept, Chris, that they get away with paying bugger all when the ground handlers are still carrying the fixed cost and overheads. Yet that same airline will expect them to be available for handling an ad hoc freight charter tomorrow with 24 hours notice. I think that is rather unkind to the handling community and needs to be pushed at a more central or global level rather than just individually.
I think GHAs and airports, now's the time to come together and do things differently, and now's the time to say no to some of the complexities and some of the ridiculous things that were being done, and stop this down to the bottom, like a whirlpool. It's crazy. And also to realise that there is an alternative to volume products, and that's value products, and then for that there has to be a payment, which is important. But listen, you gave a lovely segue earlier into a blast from my past, mate. You said preferred handling partners.
Did I?
PHP program.
Just slipped in
goes
there,
all the way back, yeah. So people like, I'm just trying to think where they are now. Andre Bleck, who's at Etihad, Chrissy Beale, who's now, where's Chrissy Beale now? WFS. Martin Drew, obviously still at Etihad. Robert Fordry at Menzies. They'll all remember that PHP terminology so very well. Thank you for that.
No problem, Chris. I'm glad to sort of give you the opportunity to reflect on your past. But if I mentioned, it sort of goes with controlled handling partners or even what was the NHP? I've forgotten what the NHP was.
That was necessary.
Necessary. There you go.
It went
nobody is
necessary to comply.
We're all fallible, so nobody's necessary these days.
Yeah, no. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of necessities out there at the moment. Now, another thing that we did when we were last on air, we gave a like a neutral, but nonetheless a reference to a share tip, which was IAG share price, which between the 2 weeks now has gone up by 20%, mate. Hey,
if only I'd listened to my own advice, Chris.
Hey, what a nice little tip that was, son. And also, mentioned with EasyJet now, at least getting very close. I think 93 or 94% of the take up for their 1.6 billion rights issue. So at least that's going to put some money in the pockets now. So it'll keep with their bay for a few weeks, if not a few months. So
exactly, yeah,
good that things are happening. And then on the flip side, you got poor old Gatwick, who are now in talks with banks reference defaulting on loans, even though things look like they're getting a little bit better for Gatwick. So, and with JetBlue flying in there now. So, there's some good news out there, Steve.
Yeah, I think, look, Gatwick's in an interesting spot. I mean, I know they've been pushing for, a return to the normality of, or more normalcy, if you like, when it comes to the slot waiver. I think Gatwick feels slightly hard done by, and certainly Stuart Wingate, the CEO, had been public about this before, suggesting that the slot waiver be ended ASAP, because there are airlines who are just not operating anywhere near the required was it 50% these days, I think, around the 80-20, and they are withholding or essentially blocking those slots being used for other airlines that would probably want to sort of nip in there and set up a Gatwick base. And I can think of a couple of carriers that probably would lap that up, not necessarily the winter season, but certainly for the summer season. Also, a big blow to Gatwick, of course, with the British Airways Gatwick shuttle operation. Now, Neil is in the coffin thanks to the pilot unions.
Well, I just think that's
absolute effing arseholes. Now, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, of course, but I can only suspect that, having dealt with pilots in the past, I would only suspect that, there is some concern around seniority, and they wanted to protect seniority of the transfer to Gatwick shuttle operation to the new business, which clearly is unworkable, clearly doesn't make any sense at all. How do you create a new cost base and a new business with new opportunity for people to travel? A fleet of whatever it is it 20-something, 20 plus, 320s at Gatwick, 320s on the BA Gatwick short-haul fleet, or what used to be EOG, was it European Operations Gatwick? European Operations Group. I think it was European Operations Gatwick. That's gone back to the 90s, I think, probably 2000s. But
what a shame, though, Steve.
All
the young pilots and people that have paid their money and trained and come into the business. It's there should be room for everyone.
Yeah, of course, but pilots don't think that way. They are a very selfish bunch for the most part, and I'll probably get caned by a few of them for saying that. But I think that my friends who are pilots generally will know that there are arseholes, or there can be arseholes in amongst their midst. I mean, the way some of them have operated, Chris, during this pandemic has been nothing short of shocking, and in some parts immoral. Almost little in the way of sacrifices being made. Yes, of course, in the Middle East, where they've got no union protection or whatever, they've done very well. So they haven't done so well, and a lot of my friends were exited from those roles. But where they have had the strong protection of a union, and of course now I'm arguing the case for unions, which is not my normal disposition, but I think there is a place for unions within organisations to ensure, or within groups of employees to ensure that they are well represented and that they're not undermined and the businesses don't take the piss out of them. But when everybody else is taking 80% pay cuts or sitting at home or being made redundant, and other guys and many airlines that you and I know, Chris, are sitting there taking almost full salary, it's quite incredible.
No, that's and it's not equal across the whole spectrum. So I think that's where it flags up, which is not right. Talking about their big hits though, and you're talking about Middle East carriers, you've got Qatar there, reporting a $4 billion annual loss, and some of the passenger figures, it's an 82% drop in passenger figures. I mean, that really brings it home, especially as Qatar's principle was, to try and keep flying as many places as possible and for as long as possible. So, it's a shame when you see those sort of numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I suspect the loss is far more than that published, given we know the history of Qatar's results. That seemed like normally a good year, wouldn't it? Not for Qatar. Great to see the 787-9s flying in passenger config now. They've got a new business class product. It's called Qatar New Business Class, which I thought was a Q Suite product. Oh, no. They've gone ahead with a Qatar New Business Class, which looks pretty decent for those that get it to try it out. It's partly been operated on short Asian sectors like those between the Middle East and Kuala Lumpur.
And you've missed out, have you?
I'm missing out. However, my next flight is with Etihad, so darn. But that's quite interesting. I also just to continue in the Middle East.
Them, Steve. They do have quality products. It's a lovely way to travel.
But it's not a commercial proposition. I mean, they don't have to. The shareholder doesn't ask for a return on the investment. But from a P&L perspective, the shareholder gets returns in many other ways, which is completely fine. And it's totally acceptable. It put Qatar on the map, essentially, in a similar way that Emirates did for Dubai. But I do believe fundamentally that Emirates and Qatar are two very different organisations. One is run with a very commercial mindset, and the other is run just to satisfy the needs and the demands of brand Qatar, with all these fancy, lovely products, which Emirates doesn't compete with, let alone any of the European airlines. So you understand that. So of course they should have a bloody great product. They should have, the best in the world, as they do. But what I was going to just continue with the Middle East scene was, it was great to see. I'm not a fan of Skytrax, as you know, Chris.
Yeah, I know.
These wishy-washy Mickey Mouse awards. But if you look at it objectively, or try to look at it objectively, and look at who's not paid them for marketing support or marketing materials, then you could potentially look at Saudia as being the world's most improved airline in the most recent Skytrax awards. So relative, actually, it's good to see that, because you can use it as a proxy. So whilst I fundamentally disagree with the awards overall, I think using it as a proxy to see the changes is quite helpful, and something that is worthy of review. So that was pretty good. So I'm sure Saudi will continue to fly the flag in the 75th anniversary year of the kingdom.
Yeah, no, they're doing well. They're doing very well. And just on awards, need to mention about Glyn Jones, the CEO of London Southend. They picked up an award, and it was one from the CAA, which is to do with quality assurance framework audit on baseline training quality and also self-assessment. So well done, Glyn. That's a great one. And now, Steve, some other good news. Obviously, the face-to-face conferences have started happening. GHI had a good one last month, and now you've got the World Cargo Symposium, which was switched from Istanbul to Dublin, which is taking place shortly, the 12th to the 14th. So hopefully the numbers will be as high as they can be with such short notice of switch. And then you've got the IGHC in Prague in November, which I'm definitely going to go to. So it's nice to see that, some of the conferences are coming back. Yeah.
What are those dates, Chris?
The dates in Prague, I'll have to tell you. I think it's round about the middle to latter part of. No, hold on, I'll tell you.
Okay, because the Dubai Air Show, the only air show we've had in 2 years, I think. Somebody might correct me if I'm wrong, but the only air show that I can remember, commercial air show, I mean, in any case, is being held in November as well.
What dates are that? What dates are that? Because
14th to the 18th. I remember that because I am not going because it's my wife's birthday on the 14th of November.
Well, my friend, you might be able to join me in Prague then, because that's from the 16th to the 18th.
I will keep that in mind and let you know what Ramani says.
Yes, I look forward to that. And then last but by no means least, Steve, knowing that you're a dog lover, it was interesting to see that in Miami now they're the first US airport to test COVID-19 detector dogs.
Well, these dogs are very smart. Like the cadaver dogs, the ones that look for corpses and bodies and stuff. And of course, there's the drug dogs and hearing dogs, guide dogs. I mean, I think dogs are really man's best friend. I mean, I would rather have, I've said this before, rather have more dogs in my house or on the planet than humans. But I'm not one of these sort of crazy scatty cat women, that have got 50 cats in their house. These Fruit Loop women that have got these normally spinsters or single ladies. I'm not quite to that extent with my dogs, but great. Look, I mean, it might be a bit of a gimmick, Chris. I mean, what is the likelihood? I mean, you see the sniffer dogs at Heathrow looking for cash. The dogs looking for the money.
Yeah.
Or the dogs on the other end on arrival looking for drugs. So outbound they're looking for cash, and on the return they're looking for the drugs. I mean, very smart these dogs are. You see.
Yeah.
They're not very scalable. Let's say, Chris. I think that would be the.
Wouldn't it be nice to hear a couple of dogs doing a podcast about humans and about how?
I'd rather watch that than watch this. To be honest with you.
Well, Simon, I don't know if you've seen, mate. Now you've just seen a couple of references there. He'd prefer to watch dogs chatting than watch this. So thank you for the endorsement, Steve. And then he's also introduced us, or not introduced us, to a few new groups, mainly those that love cats.
Well,
your commercial, Steve, your commercial capabilities in pushing this show are incredible, and I'd like to personally thank you for that. So, there we go.
Nothing if not honest, Chris. What was it you were telling me earlier? Something about you being the diplomatic one.
Yeah, I never thought I'd ever term myself as diplomatic, and now I've found somebody who's pushing me to that level. But I'll tell you what, maybe we'll do. We'll have to dress up as dogs and do the last show of the year as dogs, reflecting on what humans have done or not done, and why dogs are a calmer, more supportive breed. Well,
I'm hoping that we might get a Skylight Christmas party this year. That would be my wish.
Happy days, mate. Happy days. Listen, mate, lovely to see you again. Good luck with everything. I know how busy you are, and I wish you great success. And probably, I'm not sure how many people are listening out there at the moment, but hopefully James is still running and keeping himself fit. So for one person,
James has given up his weekend run because we've messed with his timing. So James is sat on the sofa listening to Lionel Richie.
Wherever it is, hopefully James is listening in. All right. Listen, take care, mate, and I'll see you next week. All the best.
Cheers, Chris.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks a lot.